I promised that today we would talk a little bit about feedback and criticism and stuff, and I know that other people will have really useful things to say about this, so I am not going to go on too long, but I have got, I'll try to open my thing, I have got 3 little things to say about it. Okay, so, because it is scary putting stuff, oh, Sarah's back. I didn't know she'd gone. Give me a sec. Hello again, Sarah. You can't hear me. Okay, so yeah, dealing with criticism and feedback, it's really scary. We put stuff out into the world and then we're like, please don't hurt me. Oh, hide. It's still scary. I've done it for years and years, and I still want to vomit every time I send anything to another person to read. So I don't know if this helps or not. It doesn't really go away, but it does get easier to manage, and it's less of a shock every time. So so yeah. Okay, so the first thing that I am going to suggest that you do is Brené Brown's post-it note exercise. I love it, and this is really good for unsolicited feedback mostly. So because you'll always get people who want to flap their mouth at you, and sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's just not. So I have 2 post-it notes that I have stuck on my desk, and one of them has the names of people, opinions I value in terms of writing and business and books and things, and the other one has the names of people whose opinions I value in terms of personal life and personal stuff, and some of those names cross over. And if I get unsolicited feedback from somebody, or somebody says something that hurts my feelings or whatever, if their name isn't on that post-it note, I really question very carefully whether I am going to take on board what they're saying, because if they're not on the post-it note, is their opinion, not that they have no value as a person, but is their opinion important enough to me to let it bother me that much? And if their name isn't on the post-it note and their opinion isn't that important to me, then I can kind of discard it or discount it. I do think about it, but then it's like, I'm going to give it the power to hurt me. So I like the post-it note exercise. You can get that from Brené Brown's book Daring Greatly, which is flipping brilliant and everyone should read it. My second suggestion is that you actually ask for feedback. So you go out and ask for feedback from people, because if you ask, and actually not for feedback, for advice, as John has pointed out, is a much more productive way of doing it. Ask for advice on how to make your book better, and ask really specific stuff as well. So you're not just going out and saying, what do you think of a book? Because A, you'll get really not useful stuff back from most people, and B, you're asking people for their subjective, like, do you like it or not? And that's not always useful, because people are kind of emotional about it. So I ask people very specific questions. When I sent my book out to beta readers, I had a list of very specific questions that I wanted people to consider when they were reading it, and I got other stuff back as well. Of course I did. I got other information back. Some of it was really useful, some of it wasn't very useful, but people, when they read through the specific questions, I really wanted to know what they thought of these things and this feedback. I got really useful stuff back. And the other reason to do that is because when you have asked for advice or critique or whatever from people, it's less painful when it arrives, because it's like, I've actually asked for this. Unsolicited feedback, I think, is what we're mostly worried about, because it's stuff that we haven't asked for, and it's just like people, throwing their opinions in your face, and you haven't necessarily asked for it. So that's what I find very difficult, and I think a lot of people do. When you actually ask people to help you with your book, it puts a different spin on it. It's like, okay, so some of the stuff that I hear might be hurtful, but actually it's coming at me, A, because I've asked for it, and B, because these are people that I trust and they have my best interests at heart. And it's like, maybe they put it a bit bluntly, maybe, it doesn't always come out in the way that you would like to hear it, but it's said with the best of intentions, which I think is very, very important. Now I'm going to shut up because other people have other things to say about receiving feedback, and I could talk about giving feedback as well, but we'll do that another day. So yeah, join in, talk.
Well, of course, Vicky and I have a two-way story. So we've both had the same experience on commenting on each other's work. And then there's also the point which is generally, because that's all talking about dealing with the negative emotions, but there's also the fact which is just generally every time we get feedback from other people, we tend to make writing stronger. The best writing I've ever done is the stuff that has actually been through a very good review process from people I trust. They spot things I would not spot and do things that sometimes Well, let's talk about the tricky bit, which which is because I was reviewing Vicky's book and she reviewed a landing page I did once, and we had similar experiences. Which is, I was driving down the M3 when I was listening to Vicky's podcast where she described hearing someone's feedback to one of her chapters of her book, and as you described it, went, "Oh fuck!" I did talk about how hard it was to hear. And I realized that when you described the feedback, that was my feedback that I had caused this challenge to you. But ultimately, you heard this feedback and you realized that actually you did agree with me over time, and that actually you were better from receiving it, and I'd been kind. And similarly, when you did comments on my landing page, which though I had asked for it, I was still scared to read it. I actually didn't read your feedback for 2 days after you sent it to me because I had to be brave enough to open the email. And sure enough, and even in there, you've been very nice, but you'd said some things which I again thought, oh, I like that, but you were absolutely right. But yeah, there's always just this emotional phase, which is just there's this thing where it's always better when you get the feedback. Yeah. But it's often very hard, even to read it the first time. I've gone through, I actually have a process now, which is that when I receive feedback, I read it, I reply, thank you, and then wait a day, right? Because I reckon the day after, then I'll read it again. And then, because my first reading is often not real. It's all my emotional primitive thing has read it and read things that weren't even there, that they didn't actually say. But on the day after, when it's all had given it a chance to then I'll read it as, oh no, they said that's you, so I can do that. Maybe not, I'm not sure. You know, then they get to how do you actually do it? I find there is an emotional journey in this.
Yeah, I'll come to you right in a second. I have to say this before I forget, because the other most important thing that I probably forgot to say, that's all absolutely true, John. Thank you for all of that. And like, you do read it in an emotional state. You are not your work. That is a really, really fucking important thing to remember. Sorry about the swear, but it's really important to remember that, because as John was saying, it's like, we imagine that the stuff that we write is us. And so when we get negative or constructive feedback and was like, you know, this could be better, it's not saying you could be better. And that is really, 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 really important to remember, because it's difficult for us to separate that. It's not a reflection on you as a person. It's that I can write an absolute bag of shit, and I often do, does not mean that I'm a bag of shit as a person. And, you know, sometimes it might take me 10 minutes to separate those two things. I'm like, I'm dreadful, I have no place in this world. It's like, of course I do. That's ridiculous. So that is like, you are not your work, and really maybe write that out and stick it on your screen. Because that's a really important thing to remember. Yinka, sorry, I will shut up.
No, don't apologize. You made the point perfectly, because I think it was this time last year maybe, and earlier again this year, I asked for personal feedback. So I asked people to give me feedback on me as a human. And yeah, it's not an exercise for the faint-hearted, but even in those situations, it was the most valuable thing I have ever done in my entire life. B, it really does make the point that Vicky has just made, which is you are not your work, and equally your work is not you. But equally, you're not the even if somebody is commenting on your character and who you are as a person, it's still it's a version. It doesn't make it the truth. And I think that is something that experience has taught me about feedback in general, which is that while they say perception is reality, reality is not the same as the truth. Their reality is exactly that. It's their reality, it's irrefutable. It's not up necessarily for discussion, it is up for interpretation, but just because it's their reality, it doesn't make it the truth. And so I think that exercise for me was so powerful, because it enabled me. I mean, I was crying, but all for all the other reasons, because everyone said such nice things, and I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm so flawed. Anyway, that's another boring story for another time. But yeah, I was really surprised by their perception, but again, it kind of made me then question my perception and whether that was reality and the truth either. So I think these are words that we interchange often, but you know, I would just focus on and really home in on what is true, what is actually true. You know, if they because everybody comes at things with their own specific lens. And that is what colours their view of the world, their view of your work, their view of your writing, their view of your book. But just, you know, their lens, taking their lens into account is really important. And as such, it's important that you have a clear understanding of what is true versus what is their reality.
That's really good advice. Thank you. And related to that, and following on from that, you don't have to take their advice or accept their advice. You can choose what you're going to listen to and what you're not going to listen to. And again, that comes down to who you're listening to. And there's a little chat going on in the chat box about unsolicited and negative feedback. And you know, if you get unsolicited negative feedback from people, you don't have to listen to that. And if they're being a dick about it, you absolutely don't have to listen to it, because that's coming from a place that has nothing to do with you at all. And this, again, it's like if you read something and it's, you know, people are clumsy. Maybe they've just stubbed their toe literally before they wrote to you. It could have nothing to do with you. And so you've got to bear that in mind as well. And if you want to read negative unsolicited feedback in that light, it's like, oh, they've just stubbed their toe, it's nothing to me, then do it. Because even if it's not true, it's going to make you feel better. And you know, you can paint that reality for yourself as well. So yeah, and you can block them, of course, as Claire has said, if they're being total dicks, you can really block them. I love what Sarah S has said. Any emails that I receive and take badly on the first read, I will read twice or times and realize they are actually fine and reasonable responses. Because someone said it's, you know, your inner chimp. You will read stuff with your inner chimp, and it reads things that aren't there. So like, I have stuff before, and like, I've been in tears, and Joe was ready. He's like, why are you upset? They have not said that at all. And it's just like, oh, okay. Maybe not. And Yinka has also added, and it's only come to me, Yinka, you don't have to accept anything, not in what you think. Yeah, exactly. Yes, and your emotions make your eyes play tricks on you. And so at TAM, some people do it for a hobby. Some people actually, and this is kind of really funny, because I had a client who he put his book out there, and then he got this negative review, and I was like, what? I don't think you've even looked. And I went and had a look. So you can click on people's Amazon profiles and have a look at other things that they reviewed. It was like 95% bad reviews, and this person's hobby was obviously leaving bad reviews on Amazon. And so, you know, bear in mind that, like Tam said, some people just do have Nelly hobbies, and they just like to be mean to people, and so you can kind of notice when that happens. Louise has said, do you think it's best just to write for yourself, and if others benefit, then it's a bonus? I've written nearly 15,000 words, and I do worry that half of it will be deleted in editing, and then I'll have leaflet, not a book. I'm sure you won't, but I've enjoyed typing. I've found my own words useful at times, and it's made me improve in other ways. I think it depends what you're writing, honestly. I always write for myself as well as for other people, because I tend to be my own ideal client to a certain extent. So I write what I would like to read. But for my purposes, then if others benefit, it's not a bonus. I want people to benefit, and so I'm writing for myself and for other people. And I think you can do both. If you're writing a book that's just for you, that's great, do it. But I think your book, the one that you're writing, you want to help other people with your systems and things. So I would say, no, you've got to keep them in mind as well. That doesn't mean that you have to pander to people, though. There's a difference. So you can write what you're writing for you, and make sure that people like you, because you know, you're going to a certain extent, you know, you're going to be writing for your own self, your own past self, or whatever. You can keep that in mind as well. You do have to like what you're writing, otherwise why put it out there? But yeah, I think that was possibly a longer conversation for another day. Yeah, good advice from Yinka. Ask yourself, how will this make this writing better? Yeah, that's one of my editing things. One of my things about storytelling. Does this add anything to the story, the narrative? Does it move it forward? If it doesn't, if it's just filler, you get rid of it. You don't have to delete it forever. You can stick it in another file. It's like John said earlier when he was like, oh, but I like that bit. It's like, okay, well, you can like that bit. It doesn't necessarily mean it has a place in this particular thing that you're writing. So you, like they say, kill your darlings. You don't have to annihilate them. You can get out and put it somewhere else and use it somewhere later. We don't have to kill everything. And yes, like Yinka said, if people are telling you that something is crap, that's really not helpful feedback, and you don't have to listen to it. It's them, yeah, throwing their emotions at your face. Cool, a few people have said bye. I'm going to say bye, people who have left. Louise says sometimes I read it back and I'm surprised it's actually good. Yeah, and that will happen. Sometimes I read stuff that I've read back and I'm like, oh, who wrote that? And I'm like, oh, I wrote that. And other times I will read stuff that I've read back and I'm like, who wrote this pile of crap? And it's like, oh, that was me too. So it kind of goes both ways, and that's fine because not everybody needs to see all that stuff. So, has anyone else got anything to say about any of the stuff that we've just been talking about? And I hope it's been helpful, Tam.
A mild prodding. Of course, the regular feedback is easy when you're in a trusted group and you do it regularly.
Yeah, I am on it. Yeah, I'm going to have that planned and sorted by the end of this week. So I'm going on holiday on the 12th of September. So I want it sorted and up and running by the time I go on holiday. So that gives me just under 2 weeks to do it and sort it out. And I am on the case this week.
And I initially misread Karen's email that saying, thought it was a typo, said she thought she was taking the kids to the vets. I thought, what? No, she just mean kits or kittens.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Kits, yes, kids. Cool. Sarah shared. Yeah. Oh, just bloody Facebook. Just put stuff on Facebook and then don't ever look at it. Honestly, don't ever read the comments on YouTube ever. And don't read the comments on your Facebook ads and things. It probably was a slip of the hand.
I'll tell you my best Facebook, YouTube comment ever. I put up a video on repairing a digital piano because I had to repair my own digital piano and no one had made a video, so I put one up. And many comments just saying this is very useful, blah, blah, and also. But one comment was, Lord Baelish does piano repair. Which I was wondering, is that an insult? But my kids actually thought it was quite good.
And yeah, you can turn things around and be like, well, it's like when people are like, oh, you're a feminist. So it's like, why do you think that's an insult? I get that all the time. And remember as well that the people that are making those comments are probably to you, John. They're probably teenage boys who live in their mom's basements. Like, that's actually what they're doing. Yeah, Tam says I've accidentally put a laughing face on a sad post before. Rectified it. Yeah, we've all done it. It happens. It happens. Thank you for that, everybody. I think that was really good. I found that really useful. It's useful to remember this stuff. Tam, I'm glad you found that helpful. Hope that you find the reading helpful. Yeah, and just give yourself, oh, my final piece of advice, give yourself 10 minutes to like wail and cry and have a temper tantrum about it. Because I'm like, I have to let my emotions out because otherwise they bubble over and I throw things at flies and it doesn't go well. So it's like, if something upsets you, let it upset you. Your feelings are bad, and then you can kind of do that for 10 minutes and then be like, okay, am I actually being reasonable about this? Is this something that I should, that not that I should be upset about, but is this something that would upset me if I leave it for half an hour? And then you can be like, okay, cool, I've been upset for 10 minutes, that's fine. And now I'm going to either discard it or act on it, or whatever you're going to do with it. I find that to be a really useful thing to do as well. So cool. Thanks for asking the question, Tam. That was a good one. Carol's going bye, and I think I'm gonna go as well now. So I will see you all tomorrow morning at 9 AM. And yeah, I'm just gonna basically boot everybody off because I'm gonna have a very quick chat with Jill. So I will see you all tomorrow morning. Bye.